All right, so John's going to be demoing the standing press and everything that we're looking for here. Getting his hands set in the right spot. He's going to step back away from the rack and turn so we can see him because we're dealing with a limited space here. He's going to take a big breath of air, trap it, drive the weight overhead. Big breath. When he gets that big breath of air, it's helping to stabilize his spinal column. He's going to pull his sternum down, pull his belly button in towards his spine, just help trap all of that and make one solid column from his ankles all the way up overhead. I'd like to see your hands just a little bit narrower, but it is one of those things that if it works for you, then keep doing it. You're going to get the weight right over the palm so that it's sitting basically as an extension of the forearm, and you're going to want the elbow to be driving straight underneath it. So this is a pretty good position here on the side. And you'll notice that the bar path is going to be relatively straight, and he's going to have to move his chin out of the way in order to press up. So it doesn't need to be any awkward movement. He's just going to move it overhead, push his head through, and finish showing a little bit of ear in front of his arm at the top of the movement, like so. And John's well integrated, so we're not seeing this awkward hip movement that hyperextends his spine at the top, which you'll tend to see in some people. So this is good. John's just going to rep out a couple more, driving the weight overhead. And this is coming from a dead stop to a pressed out position overhead. I'm going to rotate back around to the front here. And another thing that's important to recognize is that at the top of this movement, he's elevating his shoulder. So if you were to draw a line from where his clavicle connects to his sternum out over the tip of his shoulder, at the top of this movement, his clavicle is going to be pointing up. And that trap elevation is important because we want to reduce the shoulder impingement that happens when the humerus comes in contact with the acromial process out there at the end. So he's driving his shoulders up. One more. Traps are elevating. Driving the shoulders up, pushing his head through the top, and that's a locked out press. Good job. So then when this thing's loaded, with a big breath of air, he's going to walk it back to the rack, supporting it with his shoulders, put it in there, and step away. Yeah, so John's going to demo the box squat as a way of teaching low bar back squat and kind of transitioning a little bit more into a posterior chain movement. So with the bar low on his back and his elbows helping to support that on his scapula, he's going to reach his hips back in a considerably wider foot configuration, reaching the hips back. He's going to make contact with that box and stand back up. And this, what you'll notice is that he's really reaching with the hip, almost to the point that he's going to lose his balance. And the idea is to keep those shins really vertical, and then he has to kind of lever forward a little bit, but with the torso. But because he has that lower bar position, it's still keeping the center mass of the load, being the bar, pretty much directly over his ankle, if not just a little bit to the front. So really reach back with that, John, and stand. And John really doesn't have any experience low bar back squatting, so this is a learning experience for everyone. Drive him back, drive the knees out. Okay, a little flat with the torso. Really reach the hips back. Back. Good. You can see the bar is still traveling a little bit more in front of the leg. As his hip flexibility increases, that won't be quite as big of a deal. All right, so now we've taken the box away, and we're going to see about getting John a little more dialed in onto his low bar squat. Again, low bar is just a variation. There's nothing wrong with high bar squatting. It's just a little bit different muscle groups that you're going to be pulling in. So again, any coach worth his salt is going to stand on the side because that's where the majority of the action is happening. But I'm going to rotate around here a little bit so you can get an idea of what he's got going on with hand and elbow placement as he supports that bar in the mid-scapula area. A little bit wider than his normal stance. That bar's down there, and if you roll your elbows up underneath that bar, it's going to create a nice little shelf for you there, and it'll actually feel pretty comfortable once you get used to it. So again, with a neutral spine and his bar in this position, he's going to push his hips back and his knees out and sink into that squat, trying to keep the bar directly over midfoot. And that's money. He's going to want to squat all the way down below parallel with the thighs. Drop the hips. Down. Nice. Glutes and hamstrings are going to pull him out of it. All right, the torso's coming a little bit far forward again, but again, this is just, we're learning and we're getting it dialed in. So the shins are nice and vertical, hips are driving out, and he's squatting. Okay, so now John, from here, the absence of any coaching, just from that position, just squat. If you were gonna squat that thing full depth and stand back up with it, let's just see where you're at. All right, so you can see he transitions almost immediately back into a high bar type position with a lot of forward knee translation, but he's also able to get a lot more depth under the bar. So again, this is just something you tinker with your athletes and see what's going to be a better adaptation for them, what's going to fit better for what we're doing. In the fire department, I think either is totally legit. I think that the low bar back squat is maybe a little bit more applicable because of the P-chain movements. But if you're deadlifting, then maybe you don't need to do both. All right, good job, John.